There's a kind of silence that isn't peaceful. It's thick, like a humid summer day when even the wind refuses to stir. That was the kind of silence I sat in at my parents' dinner table. The clinking of silverware, the occasional scrape of a chair leg against the hardwood floor, and the way no one looked me directly in the eyes. It all told me everything I needed to know. Before we dive in, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below letting us know where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. We're excited to connect with all of you, so don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more amazing content. Now back to the story. My name is Jenna Caldwell. I'm 31 years old. On paper, I'm the kind of woman people say, has it all. I own a thriving interior design business in Charleston, drive a car that still smells new, wear neutral-toned cashmere sweaters like armor, and live in a home I poured my soul into decorating. But none of that mattered this evening. Not with the faint bruise blooming on my left cheekbone, just beneath my concealer. It was a soft blue, like a distant thundercloud, hiding behind the polite mask I wore. Across from me, my mother, Cheryl Caldwell, sipped her Chardonnay with the kind of composed grace only years of ignoring uncomfortable truths can teach you. Her hair was still set in the same honey blonde bob she'd had since I was 10. Her nails were freshly done, her pearls resting against her blouse like punctuation marks. She glanced at my face once, just once, and her expression didn't even flicker. My father, Martin Caldwell, a retired insurance executive who prided himself on being a man of logic, hadn't even bothered to look at me since we sat down. They saw it. I know they did. I had tried to cover the bruise before we left the house. I used 2 layers of concealer and a cold compress to minimize the swelling. But when I caught my reflection in the car mirror, I knew it was still visible. Ethan said it wasn't. Said I looked normal. But normal didn't feel like the right word when your husband's handprint was still echoing across your skin. Ethan Rowe, my husband of 4 years, was running late, caught up at work. He texted me. That was fine by me. I didn't want him here yet. I wanted a moment to understand how my own mother and father could glance at their only daughter's bruised face and say absolutely nothing. The roast chicken on my plate smelled wonderful. I hadn't touched it. My stomach was coiled so tightly that even water felt heavy. I tried not to let the silence press into my chest too much. Tried to breathe slowly. Count backward from 10 like my therapist taught me. I hadn't seen Dr. Marie in 3 weeks. Ethan said therapy made me overthink everything. I broke the silence first. Work's been busy, I said, folding my napkin in my lap. We just signed a new contract for the historical home downtown. The one near the marina. My mother nodded. That's nice, dear. More of those old houses. You know, I always thought your aesthetic was a bit too modern. Old houses are where the money is, my father chimed in, not looking up from his plate. People will always pay to feel like they're part of history. Neither of them asked how I was. Neither of them asked what happened to my face. I could feel the corners of my eyes sting, but I swallowed it down. I wasn't going to cry, not here. Not for them. 30 minutes later, Ethan finally walked in. The sound of his shoes on the polished floor echoed like a warning bell. I straightened my spine. Sorry, he said, smiling as he walked toward the dining room. Had to put out some fires at the office. He kissed my cheek, the one that wasn't bruised, and pulled out the chair next to me. He was wearing the light blue shirt I bought him last Christmas. The one he knew made his eyes look kinder. Ethan had a way of dressing like a man who didn't have to prove anything. And a way of speaking like he knew he was always the most charming man in the room. My mother smiled at him. Ethan, darling, you've lost weight. You're working too hard. He laughed. Guilty as charged. You know how it is when you're gunning for partner. Can't afford to take your foot off the gas. My father gave an approving nod. That's the right attitude. I stared down at my plate, fingers curling in my lap. Ethan reached beneath the table and gently squeezed my thigh. A warning? A performance? I wasn't sure anymore. Then he stood. I know we weren't planning anything special tonight, he said, pulling something from his jacket pocket. A small box. But I've been thinking a lot lately about how lucky I am. About how Jenna has stood by me through everything. My late nights, my stress, even my flaws. His eyes flicked to me. And I want to recommit to her. Publicly. Here, in front of her wonderful parents. He knelt down beside me. Jenna, he said softly, will you renew your vows with me this December? Let's start the next chapter fresh. Stronger than ever. I felt like I was being strangled by velvet gloves. My mother clutched her hands together like she was witnessing a royal proposal. My father cleared his throat, visibly uncomfortable but trying to look pleased. Everyone in the room was acting like this was a perfect Hallmark moment. I looked down at Ethan on one knee beside me, smiling like he hadn't hit me that morning. Like he hadn't raised his voice, called me names, shattered a glass on the kitchen tile because I had forgotten to pick up the dry cleaning. I felt sick. But I smiled. Not because I forgave him. Not because I loved him. But because I knew exactly what this was now. A show. And I knew something else too. I wasn't going to play this part much longer. Yes, I said, voice smooth, controlled. Of course. He stood and kissed my hand. My parents clapped politely. I excused myself soon after, locking the guest bathroom door behind me and turning the faucet on to drown out the sound of my breathing. I stared into the mirror. The concealer was starting to wear off, revealing the truth just beneath. How had I gotten here? I used to think strength meant staying calm. Staying quiet. Not making things worse. But tonight something broke loose inside me. Or maybe it woke up. I had stayed quiet through too many slights. Too many nights curled up in bed, waiting for an apology that only came when Ethan needed to control the narrative again. And my parents? They had been grooming me for this kind of silence my whole life. When I fell off my bike at 8 and scraped my knees raw, my mother told me to stop crying because it was just a little scratch. When I didn't get into my dream college, my father told me to be realistic, that art schools were hobbies, not futures. When Ethan started raising his voice in our second year of marriage, my mother said, "All men have tempers. It's just stress." They trained me to ignore my own pain, to polish it until it was presentable. I had always been a good student. But maybe it was time I learned something new. I rinsed my hands and dried them slowly. Then I looked at myself in the mirror again. Really looked. I didn't look weak. I didn't look crazy. I looked like a woman who was done being quiet. When I stepped back into the dining room, Ethan reached for my hand. I let him. For now. But something was different. Something was shifting beneath the surface of this pretty little life we'd built. And for once I wasn't afraid of the cracks forming. Because light gets in through the cracks. And I was ready to see clearly. The next morning I watched Ethan from across the kitchen. He stood shirtless, humming under his breath as he cracked eggs into a skillet, like nothing had happened yesterday, or the day before that. He was always most charming after a storm. The golden hour of his abuse. Sweet, attentive, almost boyish. Sometimes it made me feel crazy. But not today. I wrapped my cardigan tighter around myself, shielding the bruise on my arm that had bloomed during the night. I couldn't remember when he'd grabbed me. Was it when I said I didn't want a vow renewal? Or when I took too long in the bathroom after dinner? The memory was a blur, the fear louder than the event itself. "You want toast or English muffin?" Ethan asked like we were playing house. "Toast's fine." He smiled like a man satisfied with himself. "That's my girl." I stared at him and imagined dumping the hot coffee I held right over his smug, handsome face. Said I took a sip. Ethan cooked like a man who believed food could fix anything. Every time he hit me, he followed it with a meal. Scrambled eggs, French toast, filet mignon. Gourmet apologies. Last night he had whispered into my hair, "You just make me so emotional sometimes, baby. I lose my head. But you know I'd never hurt you on purpose." And then he offered to make my favorite, banana pancakes with walnuts and dark chocolate chips. But even as he cooked, his eyes flicked toward me every few seconds, tracking my every movement. He was smiling but not relaxed. "Not really. Your parents liked the idea," he said, sliding my plate toward me. I could tell. Your mom had tears in her eyes. I bit into the toast even though my stomach turned. "Did you see her face?" he went on, chuckling. "I think she's already planning the ceremony in her head." "I saw," I said. "Good." He leaned over the island and stared at me with a softness that felt false. "You looked beautiful last night. Even with everything." Everything. That's what he called punching your wife in the face now. Everything. I couldn't do this much longer. And for the first time I wasn't just thinking it, I was planning it. After breakfast I drove to the design studio. My assistant, Maya, greeted me with her usual enthusiastic smile. He didn't know. No one did. I kept everything perfectly in place. No visible cracks, no tears at work. The bruises stayed where fabric could hide them, and my voice never rose when I spoke of Ethan. Just a little stress. Just a few bumps in the marriage. Nothing serious. But today I noticed how my shoulders hurt from always pretending. I locked myself in my office and pulled open the drawer with the small manila folder I had labeled invoices. Inside were copies of our bank statements, my separate credit card, and a spare flash drive with everything I had been saving quietly, screenshots of cruel texts, recordings from the nights when his apologies turned into threats. I hadn't meant to collect evidence at first. But something in me months ago had decided not to be caught unprepared. My therapist said I had a survival instinct. I didn't believe her back then. I do now. The door creaked. Maya poked her head in. "Hey boss. You good?" I startled, slamming the folder shut before she could see it. "Yeah. Just planning for the meeting with the Rutledge client." She nodded but lingered. "You sure?" I offered her a tight smile. "Positive." When she closed the door again, I let out a slow, shaky breath. Later that afternoon, I stopped by my parents' house. I hadn't planned to. But something about the way my mother had sipped her wine the night before, eyes flicking over my bruise like it was a smudge on a plate, kept replaying in my head. She was in the garden, snipping roses with delicate hands wrapped in leather gloves. Her hair was pinned perfectly, not a strand out of place. "Jenna," she said, glancing up with a tight smile. "Wasn't expecting you. I needed to talk." She stood and motioned toward the porch. "Tea." We sat under the awning, the humid Charleston air pressing against my skin like guilt. "I want to know why you said nothing," I said after a long moment. "You saw my face. You saw what he did." Her expression didn't change. She set the teacup down. "You don't know that." "I do know," I snapped. "And so do you." She sighed long and slow. "Marriage is complicated." "No. Abuse is not complicated." Her jaw tensed, but she didn't meet my eyes. "You shouldn't make a scene over one bad night." I laughed, short and bitter. "You really think this is the first time?" She looked genuinely startled. "He's always so attentive. Because you only see the show. You only believe what fits into your perfect little world." Her hands folded neatly in her lap. "He loves you. He provides. He apologized. What more? He hit me." I stood, my voice rising. "He hit me and you acted like it was nothing." She didn't flinch. "Lower your voice. This isn't how we solve things." My hands were trembling now. "You don't solve things. You sweep them under the rug. You always have." She finally looked at me, eyes narrowing. "You're overreacting. You always were dramatic." That was it. The click in my mind. I saw her for who she truly was. Not a mother who couldn't help, but one who wouldn't. Who didn't want to. I left without another word. When I got home, Ethan was waiting with a bouquet of peonies and a sheepish smile. "I thought maybe we could go out tonight," he said, stepping forward. "Clear the air." I didn't touch the flowers. "I'm tired." His jaw twitched. "Tired?" "Yeah. Just want a quiet night." Something in his face changed. "You've been acting cold lately." "I'm fine." He took a step closer. "You sure about that?" "Yes." His eyes darkened. "'Cause I've been trying, Jenna. I've been trying to make things right." I didn't answer. His fingers brushed my wrist. Not hard. But not gently either. "You're not going to start turning on me too, are you?" he whispered. I looked at him, unblinking. "Maybe you should go cool off." He froze. Just for a moment. And I watched him calculate. Then he dropped his hand, stepped back and nodded. "Right," he said flatly. "I'll be in the den." I watched him walk away. Every step felt like a countdown. That night I didn't sleep. I sat on the balcony with a blanket around me and the flash drive clutched in my hand. Somewhere inside me the fear was still there. But it was starting to lose its grip. Something else was blooming in its place. Something stronger. I opened my laptop and started a new document. A letter. A story. My story. I didn't know where this would end yet, but I knew one thing for sure. I was done letting everyone pretend this was normal. Ethan was on his best behavior the next morning. He made me breakfast again. Omelette this time with avocado toast and a little sprig of parsley on the plate like we were at some upscale bed and breakfast. I didn't touch it. My appetite had vanished somewhere between the fear and the rage that now pulsed under everything like a steady beat. But I gave him a polite smile. He liked polite. He liked pretending. You've seemed distant lately, he said, placing a hand lightly on my back. Anything you want to talk about? I wanted to say 1,000 things. I wanted to scream, you don't get to pretend you care now. Not after what you did. Not after what you keep doing. But instead I said, I think I'm just tired. Work's been a lot. He nodded like that was a satisfactory answer. You're doing great, babe. Everyone sees it. You're exceptional. That word, exceptional, used to make me feel proud. Now it felt like a leash. Be exceptional, be beautiful, be quiet, and maybe he won't hit you again. I left for work without kissing him goodbye. He watched me from the doorway and I could feel the weight of his gaze even as I turned the ignition. I didn't drive straight to the studio. Instead, I went to the legal aid office on Bay Street, the one I used to volunteer at when I first graduated. The receptionist didn't recognize me, but that didn't surprise me. I had long since stopped being the woman who believed in helping other women escape situations like mine. Somewhere along the way I became the woman who stayed. The one who smiled with bruises under her makeup. But not anymore. A soft-spoken lawyer named Tasha met with me in a small conference room. She was younger than me, probably mid-20s, but there was a fierce steadiness in her that I admired instantly. I told her everything. Not all at once but in waves. The bruises. The apologies. The control. The emotional erosion that had taken 4 years to finally become clear to me. I slid the flash drive across the table. It's all there, I said, voice shaking. Everything I didn't want to admit was happening. She nodded. Do you want to press charges? I hesitated. I want to get out, I said. And I want to make sure he doesn't follow me. Tasha looked at me for a long moment. Then we'll make sure he doesn't. By the time I left, I had a plan. I felt not safe but closer to safety than I had in years. Like I was standing on the edge of a cliff and for the first time I had a parachute. Back at the studio, Maya noticed something was different. She didn't say anything, but her eyes lingered on me longer than usual. You know, she said carefully as we looked over swatches for a client's living room, I've worked with you for almost 3 years. I looked up. You don't have to tell me anything, she added quickly. But, if you ever need help, real help, not the fake kind people pretend to give, I'm here. It hit me so hard I almost cried. Not because of what she said but because she meant it. No conditions. No denial. Just presence. Thank you, I whispered. That means more than you know. That evening I packed a small suitcase while Ethan was at the gym. Just essentials. Clothes, documents, cash I'd quietly withdrawn over the last few weeks. I left behind the designer handbags he bought me, the gold necklaces, the gifts that came after each bruise like peace offerings from a king who knew no one would challenge him. I hid the suitcase in the trunk of my car. Then I sat in the driveway and stared at the front door, heart pounding. When he came home he was all charm again. He brought takeout and wine. He wanted to watch a movie on the couch. I let him. I even laughed at a scene just to keep the illusion intact. But when he touched my face and leaned in to kiss me, I tensed. He pulled back slowly. You're still upset. I'm tired, I said. He nodded once, then turned off the TV. You keep saying that. I stood up, gathering plates. Because it's true. He followed me into the kitchen. Do you even want to be married to me anymore? He asked suddenly. I paused. My back was to him but I could feel the temperature drop behind me. What kind of question is that? I said evenly. He stepped closer. An honest one. I turned to face him, still holding the plates like a shield. I don't know, Ethan. Do you want to be married to me? Or to the version of me that never disagrees, never complains, never cries? His eyes narrowed. Don't play games. I'm not, I said. I'm just tired of playing yours. The silence that followed was thick and suffocating. Then he laughed, low and cold. You think you're going to leave me? He said, voice mocking. You think you'll do better without me? I think I'll be better without you, I said quietly. His hand twitched at his side. I waited for him to lunge, to yell, to slap. But he didn't. He stepped back and smiled that terrifying smile. You won't make it far. No one's going to take your side. Not after everything I've done for you. I wanted to scream, what you've done to me is the reason I'm leaving, but I said nothing. I knew this was the last time. The final unraveling. The next morning I left before he woke. I didn't go to work. I drove straight to a friend's guest house on James Island. Ashley, an old college roommate who once told me, half joking, If you ever need to disappear, I've got you. I hadn't spoken to her in over a year, but when I called her in tears, she didn't hesitate. Her little guest house sat in the back of her property, hidden by trees and moss and the sound of the river not far beyond. It was perfect, quiet, safe. I stayed there for 3 days. During that time, Tasha filed the temporary restraining order and began preparing the full petition. I called Dr. Marie again and told her everything. I stopped lying. It was harder than I thought it would be, but once the words came, they came fast. I didn't hear from Ethan until the 4th day. He called 12 times. Left voicemails that shifted from apologetic to furious to desperate. Please come home, Jenna. I miss you. I didn't mean any of it. Then, you're overreacting. This is what you want. To embarrass me? To ruin everything. And finally, you're nothing without me. Don't forget who made you. I didn't answer a single one. Said I wrote. Late at night, curled under the blankets Ashley gave me, I typed everything out. Our first meeting, our wedding day, the first slap, the first time he made me believe it was my fault. Every detail. Every crack in the facade. I poured myself onto the screen until my fingers ached and the tears ran dry. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet. Maybe nothing. Maybe I just needed it to exist somewhere outside of me. On the 5th day, Ethan showed up at my parents' house. My mother called me breathless. He was furious, Jenna. Demanding to know where you were. He said you're making it all up. And what did you say? I asked. She hesitated. I told him we hadn't seen you. That's true, I said coldly. Then I hung up. Later that evening, I received an email from an unknown address. It had no text, just a photo attachment. It was a picture of me and Ethan from last year. We were smiling. My arm was around his waist. His hand was on my shoulder. In the bottom corner was a message handwritten in sharp red ink. Let's not rewrite history. I stared at the image, heart pounding. He was unraveling. And that made him dangerous. But he had underestimated me for the last time. He had no idea what was coming. The photo shook me, but it didn't scare me. Not the way it used to. I looked at the screen, at the red handwriting Ethan had scrawled across our past like a threat, and I realized he thought he was still in control. Still pulling the strings. Still able to lean on the old tools. Fear, guilt, and memory. He didn't understand yet. Those strings were severed. Still, I didn't sleep that night. I kept my phone off. I watched shadows move across the ceiling until dawn began to press against the curtains. The air in Ashley's guest house felt heavier somehow, like my body was storing all the fear I wouldn't show on my face. But I didn't cry. Not anymore. I'd done that already. That part of me was drying up like a well that had been drawn from too many times. That morning, Tasha filed the full restraining order. The judge granted it within hours. Ethan wasn't allowed within 200 feet of me. He couldn't call, text, email, show up. Nothing. And yet, I knew Ethan. Legal lines were invisible to him. Suggestions. Not boundaries. Ashley came home from work early that day. She didn't say anything when she walked into the guest house. Just wrapped her arms around me and held me for a full minute. I saw the news, she whispered. My blood froze. What news? She pulled out her phone, opened Instagram and handed it to me. It was Ethan's account. A post, carefully composed with a black and white photo of us on our wedding day. Caption read, "Please pray for my wife and our marriage. We're going through a difficult time and she's been influenced by people who don't believe in the sanctity of love and forgiveness. I still believe in us. I won't give up on her even if she's trying to run away from what we built. Everyone makes mistakes. Some are louder than others." My hands trembled with rage. I read it again. And again. Influenced. Forgiveness. He was painting me as unstable. As some misguided woman having a breakdown. And the comments were already flooding in. Praying for you both. Don't give up. God restores all things. She'll come around. Women just need to feel safe again. You're doing the right thing. A few stood up for me, said things like, if she left, there's probably a reason. But most of them didn't want to believe that a man like Ethan, polished, successful, charming, could be anything other than heartbroken. I didn't respond. I didn't even message him. I called Tasha instead. I want to go public, I said, voice flat. There was silence on the other end. You're sure? She asked softly. I'm sure. Because if he was going to drag my name into the open like a puppet, I'd rather tear the curtain down myself. If he wanted to weaponize our story, I'd make sure I told the truth first. Tasha advised me to wait until the court date, until the judge heard the full testimony, until everything was official. But I wasn't built to sit still anymore. I posted a photo 2 days later. It wasn't dramatic. Just a close-up of my left wrist, the bruises still faintly visible, a gold bracelet askew and broken. My caption read, "This was not love. This was control." I stayed silent to protect his reputation while losing my own sense of reality. No more. The full story is coming soon. Within hours it exploded. Thousands of women flooded my DMs. Some told me they believed me. Others begged for advice. And some, predictably, called me a liar, a manipulator, attention-hungry. But this time I didn't care. Because the ones who mattered, the women who recognized themselves in my story, they heard me. Ethan responded with a story post. A quote card, "God is my judge. Not man." Then another, "Love always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres." He was trying to hide behind scripture. But what he didn't expect was the follow-up I posted 3 days later. A video. It was shaky, filmed on my phone, just me speaking directly to the camera in a plain hoodie with no makeup. "My name is Jenna Walsh," I said. "I've been married for 4 years. For 3 of those years I was physically and emotionally abused by the man I loved. He was good at hiding it. He made me think it was my fault. He made others think I was unstable or dramatic or ungrateful. But I'm done protecting him. I'm done lying." I paused, swallowed. I stayed for all the reasons women stay. Because I thought I could fix him. Because I thought love meant enduring pain. Because I was scared. But now, I'm not scared anymore. And I'm not silent. The video reached over 500,000 views in a week. People started messaging him with questions. Sponsors pulled away. Clients dropped contracts. He made another statement, this time defensive, polished through some PR firm. He denied everything. Claimed I was bitter, that I was trying to ruin his life after a disagreement. I responded with the audio. It wasn't long, but it was enough. His voice calling me stupid, threatening to rip that smirk off your face, the slam of a door, my gasp. It was raw. And undeniable. After that, the tide shifted completely. Even his own brother messaged me. "I didn't know it was this bad. I'm sorry." My parents still hadn't said anything. I didn't expect them to. But then one night my father called. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. "Your mother saw the video. She's struggling. We both are. We didn't want to believe. I don't know. Call us." I didn't call them back. It wasn't out of spite. It was just peace. I didn't owe anyone explanations anymore. 2 weeks later, I walked into court with my head high and my lawyer beside me. Ethan was already seated, suit perfectly pressed, jaw tight. He didn't look at me once. Not even when I took the stand and described everything. The first time he twisted my arm until I cried. The time he pulled me by my hair when I refused to cancel a girl's trip. The nights I slept in the guest room, waiting to hear his footsteps in the hallway like thunder. I told the judge about the threats, the controlling behavior, the manipulation. I submitted the evidence. The bruises. The screenshots. The voice recordings. The psychological assessments. All of it. He had no defense. When the judge issued the permanent restraining order, I felt something inside me finally let go. Not relief. Not victory. Just space. Like I had room to breathe again. Afterward, outside the courthouse, reporters waited. I didn't speak to them. But I did post one more time. A picture of me standing in front of the courthouse, holding a folded paper in my hand. For every woman who's been told to stay quiet. For every bruise covered in foundation. For every apology that came too late. This is for you. I see you. I believe you. And you are not alone. I moved into a small apartment on the waterfront. Quiet. Peaceful. The kind of place where you could hear your own thoughts without them being drowned out by fear. Ashley still visited every week. Maya still texted daily. And I started writing again, not just posts but essays. Stories. A book maybe. One night a woman messaged me. She had seen my video and left her own husband 2 days later. She sent me a photo of her in her car, tears in her eyes, saying, "I didn't know how to leave until you showed me." I cried when I read it. Not because I was sad. Because something had finally cracked open in me and light was pouring through. this story hit home, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. It might give someone the strength they need to walk away too. And if you've ever been through something similar, drop a comment below. Your voice matters. You're not alone.